6:30. Yes, it's 6:30 in Lewis. I expect it's 6:30 elsewhere in the world. In some places, won't be. Check your dateline. How can we talk such rubbish at this hour of the morning? When there are serious things about, such as how to get a pint in a pub. Good morning, this is Rouser Radio from Lewis in East Sussex in the United Kingdom, the county town of East Sussex. It is on the English south coast, full of history. Tom Paine, Battle of Lewis, the burning of the martyrs, you name it, we've got it. Well, a very good morning to you. From Keith Hayes, Rouser Radio. And indeed, we are in Lewis, but we may be a tiny town, but we're broadcasting to the world. Not only on radio, but on television. So do catch Mirador Television on Roku or on miradortelevision.com. Both give you a fairly good idea of what Mirador Television is all about. It's quirky, it's esoteric, it's strange, it's odd, it's not a bit like any other television station you've ever come across, and you probably won't want to spend more than 5 or 10 minutes there, but spend 5 or 10 minutes because it is fun. It is fun. And lots of different people. Not the old school. In fact, I'm probably the only member of the old school to be there. The rest are fresh and new and funny and not a bit like me. Anyway, let's talk serious stuff first, because all the evidence seems to be piling up this morning that we haven't been careful enough, that the virus is coming back and attacking us, biting us in the bum, as they say. With the city of Leicester, which is about 400,000 people, in the eastern part of the UK, in lockdown again. Other communities under threat. The figures beginning to look a little bit dicey again. Other parts of the world, including the United States, finding that they haven't overcome and conquered this dreadful, dreadful virus, which attacks from all corners of the earth and all corners of our society. It does not play favourites. So do be careful. Do be careful. I know what it's like. I must say, I know what it's like to get out of prison and be free and the heady feeling. No, I've never been to prison, I'm happy to say, but I have worked as a summer job in British Columbia in a young person's detention centre. I was a prison guard, and I know the feeling of being shut away as opposed to the feeling of freedom. Well, I understand why people rushed to the beach, rushed to the beauty spots, rushed to do this and rushed to do that. But somehow they'd stopped believing that this was a dangerous virus. It is dangerous, so watch out. And really, it's an unseen enemy. Nobody knows where it is. Nobody knows where it's lurking. Nobody knows if it's going to get you. There was warnings yesterday that if we're hoping for a quick fix with a vaccine or with medicine, it's not going to happen. It's going to take time to find a way to beat this medically. So in the meantime, what we've got to do is to all be very, very careful. It is strange, very strange, the way that we now meet and greet people we know, keeping a distance, walking to the other side of the street. Oh, God, what happened to the parable of the Good Samaritan, who didn't walk to the other side of the street when he saw somebody in distress? In fact, I have to confess, I really am not quite sure what I should do. I was in the supermarket the other day, suitably distanced from everybody. I don't go very frequently, by the way, but I was suitably distanced from everybody. And a gentleman, a very elderly gentleman, I never think of myself as an elderly gentleman, this elderly gentleman was tottering and looked as if he was about to fall. And of course the natural instinct was to rush and help him. And as I moved towards him, there was a horrified look on his face. And he tore off in the opposite direction at a great rate of knots. He was afraid I was going to touch him. And in fact I was. I wasn't going to see him fall. So what should I have done? Should I have let him fall and call for somebody else? Should I have caught him and let the devil take the hindmost? But that was obviously going to frighten him, and he was an elderly gentleman. Easily, I would have thought, emotionally upset. It is difficult. We simply do not know where we are anymore. And now people are beginning to warn that life post-lockdown is going to be very, very, very different. We always sat and chatted, whether that's on something like Zoom or Facebook or YouTube or all the other places that you can actually chat. Oh, life is going to be very different, we said, and we nodded sagely. Not quite sure how, but life is going to be very different. Well, at the time, we thought, yeah, it won't be that different. But it's shaping up to be. Lewis once had and was home to 63 pubs and 17 breweries, somewhere in the mid-1800s. 63 pubs, 17 breweries. Oh, bliss. But those who enjoy a pub might find a different story after lockdown. So let's... I came across this yesterday and I thought it was rather nice. It's called Fallen Soldier. It's not that long. Let's have a go. Now, should that be played at this time of the morning? Well, anything can be played at this time of the morning. We only have ourselves to account for. So, Keith Hayes, Rouser Radio in Lewes, East Sussex in the United Kingdom. And I think that that's rather a very, very nice piece. And in fact, we are probably going to use it in the documentary series that Mirador Television is making, in which we start shooting on Thursday, now that we can get back out and we, as long as we stay away, we can get the cameras rolling and we can put a new documentary together. Our old one, The Bloody Past of a Tiny Town, which relates all the blood and guts that has spilled onto the high street in this town, Lewes. has been a fantastic success. It's been commissioned for another 3 years because it's on niche channels together, and it pops up on other channels, and you can see bits and pieces of it on our own Mirador television. But it was amazing that when we first made it, the commissioners, the community channel, sort of said, it's very nice stories, Keith, and I guess we should do something for the South Coast. But it turns out that these stories, which cover bits of history and bits of social activity that nobody's ever heard of before, and it's gripped the country, at least gripped those people who watch niche television, and don't denigrate that. That can be up to 2 or 2.5 million sometimes, not to be sneezed at. And it's gripped the country, and it is a really, really excellent example of what you can see if you don't watch mainline television. Who presents this bloody part of a tiny town? Well, yes, a little younger then, but still spry enough. And the Floods of Blood, which is the sequel, is starting shooting on Thursday, and it will also feature my colleague Annie Verrill, who will be joining me soon on this radio station, the moment that we've actually got it going. She's a mum, not quite sure with her 2 children where what the score is going to be. Like everything else, it's all up in the air a bit about schools and what's going to happen and where we are as far as the virus is concerned. Once she's satisfied that her children are safe, and she looks after her dear mum, so she needs to make sure that everything is hunky-dory at home. And then, now that we've got a little bit more flexibility, she'll be joining us. So watch out for Annie. She's got a very pixie-ish sense of humour. She goes after me all the time, pulling my leg, and at least I hope she's pulling my leg. When she calls me the old man, I don't think she really means it. Could she? Does she? Oh, dear, 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 dear. Anyway, back to the virus and back to pubs. Because I was once again looking at the news this morning and trying to wade through the resurgence of coronavirus, which it's not widespread yet. But the trouble with this enemy is that once it gets a grip, it goes on the rampage. And we didn't do away with it the first time. We all threw our hands into the air, as quite often human beings do. Whoa, look, nobody can beat a human. We are the top of the pecking order when it comes to the animal world. Oh, yeah. Well, nature sometimes has a different viewpoint. And if we can defeat nature, many have tried. All have failed to date. So I would prefer to think that we start to be sensible and not follow the herd instinct. He next door is doing this. We've got people out in the streets waving banners and so on and so forth. We've got our human rights. Yes, well, those human rights can kill a few people still. So do be careful. But anyway, back to the pubs, because, I mean, first of all, I don't think that I can order a pub. I don't know how to order through my phone. And even when I'm shown these things, I quite often can't remember. That sounds as if I'm senile. I'm not at all. But the memory does go a little bit, and technology does get a little bit sticky the older you get. So if in fact I've got to decide which pub I'm going to go to the day before and order a pint, and when I get there it's on my phone, I rather think that I'm going to find different ways of drinking. And what will happen? Should I turn my dining room into a little micro pub where I can actually invite a limited number of people, say 12 friends or 15 friends, to come and have a drink at certain hours of the day and have a chat? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't sound very inviting at the moment, does it? But